Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the What the Three podcast. This is your beacon through the fog of emerging tech. I'm one of your co-hosts, Liam. I also go by Akiba. And with us as my co-hosts, we have Thomas and Charlie, but we'll get into the full introductions in a minute. What we're going to do is we're going to guide you through the exhilarating yet intricate journey of being an emerging tech founder. Basically, Charlie, I think you're the best person to explain it in the kind of elevator pitch as to what this podcast is, because it ultimately was your original baby in terms of seeing that there just wasn't anything out there for emerging tech founders. Like, where do you start? That's the goal of what we're trying to achieve here, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks for that awesome intro. The direction of travel for this has always been, there's so much content out there, and we actually did a breakdown of the market, and we did research and looked at, well, there's entrepreneur podcasts, there's Web3 podcasts, there's AI podcasts, there's investment podcasts. But actually, when you look at the intersection and you watch a lot of this content, which have been for years, there's nothing in there that's a practical step-by-step version of what do you do, right? Like, there's like what is it that I'm supposed to do with? Well, you've really got to know your numbers, the sort of general frameworks that these experts come on these podcasts, and they're useful, and I think it's because it's obvious to them, right? Like, it's obvious to them. Yeah, you got to know your numbers. What's that actually mean? Well, you've got to have a balance sheet. You've got to communicate with your FD. You've got to, what's the most important number? Is it lifetime value? Is it acquisition cost? Like, where exactly am I going with this information? And whilst these people are really knowledgeable, I think that's the actual problem. They know this stuff, and what might be a flash of the blindingly obvious to them is something that we actually have to take a course onto. A, figure out what it is they mean, and B, what we practically have to do as startup founders to say, okay, like this is the next task that I have to achieve, this salient sort of number of activity that actually is creating value for my business.
That all sounds great, but everyone watching now is saying, awesome, that sounds great, but why the hell should I listen to you three nerds? So let's explain why you should listen to us. I'll go first. So I started my career, I mean, I'm an elder millennial. I use this term on X today because I realized I'm an elder millennial.
What's
started my career about 20 years ago. I started as a filmmaker. And I made a feature film whilst I was at university, became an entrepreneur at university, started my own business. And then that grew and grew and grew until the point where I had my own media company. We started winning awards. We had clients like Suzuki. We had Nike. We did stuff with Umbro, Vimto, Colgate, huge blue chip brands. And given that I have always been a nerd and a geek at heart, we kind of diversified from just doing video production to doing web design, to doing software, to doing marketing. We're a full service marketing agency. And it was about that time, around 2016, when I realized I absolutely hated marketing. It just wasn't for me. And this is something that I've realized in terms of this entrepreneur's journey. We're going to be talking about this throughout the series, is that elder millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, we're still taught this idea that you go to school, get good grades, get a job, get a house. Like, that doesn't happen. That Coinbase advert, I absolutely love it. It resonates so much to me because it's just not true. And you go through phases and different things in your life. I don't know anyone that has left university or left school from my generation and had one job, or even actually had one career. Everyone has multiple careers. So I realized around 2016 that whilst I was good at marketing, I kind of fallen into it. It wasn't for me. And that's when I started working with Charlie, doing more marketing still. But instead of working directly with clients as much, it was more of a consulting. It was more on the strategy. I realized that strategy was more something that I fitted better into. I think one of our very good friends, Ross McKenzie, helped me realize that my skill is figuring out the puzzle before others have realized where the pieces are. And that is something that's very intangible. I offer a lot of intangibles, right? And I think that's a lot of millennials in general have a lot of intangibles. They have different, like, we used to talk about like M-shape and T-shaped people. I think we've got a lot of like zigzag people in our generation. But then when 2022 happened, 2020 happened, everyone managed to take stock. I got back into blockchain. There's something that I'd been doing with my media company in 2014. We'd been mining Dogecoin with the video editing suites when everyone finished work, they would instead of turning off the computers, they would switch on the Dogecoin miner and we'd mine overnight. And I'm sure we'll have some anecdotes about why I am not a Dogecoin millionaire right now, even though I was mining Doge in 2014 when the price was, I think at the moment it's like 5 cents, but then there was like 6 or 7 zeros before the 5. That's how early I was in Doge. And I started writing again, which was my original first love. I wrote the feature film that I made at university, and through writing, I've found my way back into blockchain. I'm now the senior editor at Crypto Slate, where I make content. I'm the co-host of the Slatecast with Nate. I'm also a contributor for Forbes, so I write the digital assets section for Forbes. And I've been all over the world speaking and working and collaborating with crypto projects. I also am an advisor with Core Blockchain that I think we're going to be talking with later on in the season, which is something I'm very excited about. It's a very cool project. And it shows the difference in emerging tech and what blockchain can do. But ultimately, that's why maybe you should listen to me. I've done some interesting things. I've worked with some interesting people, but probably the most powerful thing for me right now is the fact that I'm in the middle of all the conversations. And that's why I'm so happy with what I'm doing in a career right now. I'm getting text messages from founders of huge projects asking if they can come on the Slatecast to talk. We've got Sonny from Osmosis coming on like next week, which I'm really excited. I already spoke to him previously. I'm going to be meeting up with Paolo Ardino in Prague later on this year to talk. He's a Tether CEO. Like, all these people are just within my black book, and like, I'm not a celebrity, I'm not famous, but I'm talking to a lot of people that I think are very cool and are very well known. So whilst maybe listen to me, maybe I have some good ideas every now and then, but what I do have is ability to listen and learn from some very intelligent people around me, and hopefully kind of regurgitate that into some of these episodes and some of the thinking that we are going to be doing. So that's me. Why maybe you should probably not, but maybe listen to me. Let's now introduce, very good host I am. So I am Liam Wright, but I do go by Akiba. And as I say, senior editor at Crypto Slate and contributor for Forbes. Thomas, let's move over to you, sir.
I really want to ask a question first before we get started. Can we watch your feature film anywhere? Is it still somewhere online?
Yeah, it's called Ex Cathedra, EXCATHEDRA, Ex Cathedra, and yeah, it's available to buy and rent on Amazon.
There we go.
Search
I like
for
it.
Ex Cathedra movie or search for my name, and it should come up. It's on IMDb. You can find it through that as well.
Sweet. You say you're not a celebrity, but you're a little bit of a celebrity.
I was. Yeah. I peaked in 2009. So you go. I managed to do this the other night. If you go on Google Trends, I put it on Twitter. On Google Trends, it's all relative, isn't it? It's 100 to 0. So in 2008 or 2007, I was 100, and now I'm a 0.
I think that in and of itself has been a very interesting experience as well, right? Like, at least that's how I look at these things. But
I got deplatformed from Wikipedia because I'm no longer relevant.
Now you're throwing.
Quick plug.
No longer relevant.
IQ.wiki, the Web3 version of Wikipedia. Navin that builds that project is very, very cool. Decentralize everything.
You're not deplatformed there because you can. That is definitely a story I want to hear later on, Liam, about how you get the platform of Wikipedia, because I think that's stories for days.
That can go. We'll talk about it. So quick plug again for us. So this time we will also be running what we're going to be calling "What the Three After Dark," which will be us three completely unscripted, just waffling about Web3 and emerging tech, and it'll be a lot of fun. A lot more laid back, a lot more chill, a lot more talking over each other. But I will recommend that as the live. We're going to be doing that hopefully live on X Spaces.
Absolutely. Yeah. So from my perspective, like I started my career in healthcare. Absolutely non-tech. So what you just said, Liam, resonates very heavily with me. Multiple careers, right? Like I don't believe at the time coming from the Netherlands, coming from a small bubble, you take one career, you keep on doing that. So my friends, consultants and social counselors, and I figured I should do the same. So I did 8 years of healthcare with very interesting stories that some of them some point maybe I'll refer to. I was telling Charlie a couple this week, and after that I realized this is while I like healthcare and while I like social healthcare and while I like my patients, and they were batshit crazy in the most positive sense. We hit a point, or I hit a point where I thought, I'm not sure if I really want to do this for the rest of my life. Around like 2014, 2013, so 2024. I'm not sure if I want to do this. And then we had an interesting thing going on in the organization that I worked at. And they said, hey, look, we're building this digital call center for our patients. Our patients are generally, average IQ and EQ, and they needed help. Nothing like that in the Netherlands. So I helped building that in that year. And I was always, as you, Liam, always a nerd, always like at home, like taking apart computers and building servers, and I'd do all the crazy shit. Never really got into blockchain up until that point. I mean, I dabbled a little bit, but nothing from the technology perspective. And I decided after a year, I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to do something else. I want to really do something that I love. And I think it's technology. So I started literally again as a consultant. Like I think everybody that started in IT doesn't know how to program, starts as a consultant. And I have very strong opinions about like these kind of jobs because I've been through it myself. But I learned a lot, and I got a really interesting perspective on like commercial technology, because I've been always doing like just private crappy technology stuff on my own, writing crappy Python scripts that worked, but nobody would ever be proud of. And from there on, I just dove deeper and deeper. I moved countries, came into a different country, started in the outsourcing agencies world here in Poland, which was a wild experience. And I think if we have Polish viewers, they will maybe laugh or will scratch their ears like, why was it wild? If you're working with Polish agencies, working for unicorns in San Francisco, the culture difference or culture shock is sometimes pretty big. Talking proactive versus passive communication, clients that will call you in the middle of the night getting stuff done. Really, really wild experience. Maybe also because we worked with unicorns, still really enjoyed it. As a project manager, I brought all the crazy stuff and all the interesting things I learned about communication and technology to that job, up until we got contracted for an L0, building an L0, and they were like, "Hey, Thomas, you have this team. You wanna head this for and build this research paper into an functional L1 or L0." That was my first real work in crypto, and it was insane. We're talking 2017 ish, like I would say middle 2017. So Web3 wasn't a thing, right? It was just blockchain. We had a bunch of nerds writing code and having some ideas about how commercial blockchain looks like. These guys were part of that, and they pulled in some commercial looking guys. It was an insane time. Like nobody really knew how this tech works. Super bleeding edge, crazy hours. Again, time zone differences. But I fell in love. I couldn't stop looking at the tech, like exploring it. We wrote this particular L0 in Scala. And I was always a big fan of Scala from my work with my engineers that I've been working prior. And I just fell in love. I found it such a beautiful, crazy thing to think about. We're doing something that's completely outside of a system. We're gonna, in this case, with data security, are we gonna build something that is not on any system? Yes, we're gonna do that. That's insane. Tell me more. And that's where I got started. And then we got contracted for another job, and we did integrations, and we built wallets, and we did DeFi pieces, early DeFi pieces. And I got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and up until the point that I was like, I think I need to make a career out of this. Like, not because I want to make money out of it. I just really, really love what I'm doing. I love talking to all these founders. I love talking to all these engineers. I love hearing these crazy ideas and seeing what we can and cannot do. So, I joined a firm a couple of years ago, also in 2020. And that was already when I was really heavily involved in building for 3 years from 2017 to 2020. Joined the firm in 2020. We did a lot of biz dev, which was great. And as you said, Liam, sitting with all these people, I'm not a celebrity at all. I don't have, I think, the black book that any of you have. But somehow people that had something to say always found me. And also founders that had something to say, something to build always found me. And we did couple of really crazy, interesting projects, and also a lot of research. And that kind of went forward into my newest company or consultancy, actually, which is Intersect, which I'm co-founder of, where we really focus on blockchain and AI and actually the impact of what that has on commercial solutions. I'm a big believer of adoption. And I truly believe that adoption doesn't come by talking about the technology, but talking about the solutions that this technology can provide, and doing having these discussions done for the last couple of years just made me more and more passionate. I was like, I want to do this full time with my own company and running this. And the interesting part of all of this, what I found, is that half a year ago in the bear, probably for most people that are in crypto, I was like, no, crypto's dead, will never come back. And then AI hit really hard, like Gen AI hit really hard. It's like, oh, crypto's super dead. Nothing will happen. And I said, well, okay, let's even if the crypto side of things doesn't go off, which I find a hard time believing, I just love the technology. I love the vibe and the passion of the founders. I love the degenerate memes in the bear market. I love the degenerate memes in the bull, right? Like that's why I'm here for. I'm here to have an enjoyable life and while I'm working. And by doing that, I just made so much friends and so much people that I learn from every day. And our motto in that is, and my personal motto is always like, why do you need a blockchain? I have a group with my research team on Telegram, which is literally called that. Why do you need a blockchain? Every time I ask people that they shill things to me, why do you need blockchain? And for that same thing, I say the same about AI. Why do you need AI? Why do you need Gen AI? If you can't really answer that question, you're probably just trying to lift on the hype, which is fine. But we're trying to build something that is impactful, trying to help founders moving that forward. So I could talk about this for hours because I'm just very passionate, but I want to give Charlie some speaker time as well. Otherwise, he just sits there.
So we'll get on to Charlie. As you can maybe start to see, this was Charlie's vision, that you had the marketer turned kind of, well, not influencer, but I'm within the influence sphere of the space, which is very much communications and media. So the media side of things. You've got Thomas, which is very much the hacker, the tech side of things. And then we come on to Charlie, who is...
Of that trifecta, the hustler side of things, that would be more the finance, more the sales, put together the pitch deck and have the chat kind of guy. At least that's what the standard central casting for a startup team usually is. I'm wondering to myself, how do I follow up your two introductions? They're both pretty good. It's just okay. So essentially, I started my career for my sins in PR. So we were working in Milan, and it was one of those moments where you can't afford university. This was during sort of, I class myself as an elder millennial as well, I guess, and I had to pay for school. So we had entrepreneurship for me has always been something out of necessity. And in Milan, there's two organizations that run nightlife there. So we essentially organized events for the international students in that city. And because we were international, we were allowed to work with both of those organizations. And that's really where my sort of first sales experience came from, which was come to the party, in essence. And from there, having sort of bombed out of university, I then did a bunch of manual jobs. So my job was putting paper in envelopes for a legal firm. And at some point I was like, okay, king of menial jobs, so there's probably more to life than this. So I kind of set myself up a bit of a penance for bombing out of uni, and said I will pick and stack 1,000 boxes at Amazon FC Fulfillment Center in Milton Keynes, which is not far from where I am now. And I did that during the time that Amazon was in the papers here in the UK for not treating their staff well, I guess is the easiest way to put that. And I did that during the Christmas rush at night. And I don't know if anyone's ever done some factory work, but it's a pretty brutal gig. You're getting up and in work. You're getting up at 5 p.m. in work for God knows when, finishing at 6 a.m. picking and packing and stacking boxes. As soon as I sort of hit, I had this counter in my head, like this is like box 237, this is box 500, this is box 700. I sort of had enough, and when I got to 1,000, I was like, right, I firmly believe there's more to life than this. And picked myself up, started studying hard, went back to university and started applying to master's courses. Luckily, I got accepted into Cranfield again, just down the road from where I am, North London. And that experience sort of shot my trajectory into the finance world, which is where at that time everyone was making lots of money and it sounded like a great idea. So I became a cost leadership consultant for private equity companies that were being bought, sold, or economized. And I got an introduction into how it was to be a sort of corporate attack dog, is what I've heard one of my directors describe us as, where we come in after a purchase or before a buy, or just when a company needs to find some extra cash and economize their balance sheet or whatever they were buying. Actually, a really skilled, highly technical job. And that taught me a lot about work ethic. It taught me a lot about how you negotiate and have conversations with people. And in consulting, it's kind of like the entire career is a trial by fire. And you are 27 and you're briefing a C-suite team on the direction of, interestingly, like the specific thing that you know a lot about, whether it be their budget for travel to, the specific kind of grain that they're putting in their cookie. And you have to learn this stuff immediately. Welcome to your job. You've just traveled an hour to get to this random office that is at the arse end of God knows where. And now you have to learn all of this kind of stuff and make the numbers work. I think I lasted in that gig, to Liam's point, maybe 15 to 18 months, year and a half, where I looked around and I was like, this isn't kind of where I want to go. And, that was the experience I was having at the time as well. I was probably not the easiest employee, no doubt. I went from that company to another company called Cadence, and it was basically sharp end of the corporate spear straight down to public sector. So I was working, my first project was, again, consulting, but technical consulting. So I was working for the Department for Education, and credit to the team, there was a project, the first project I was put on was called SFB, and it's the piece of tech that all educational institutions in the UK report their numbers into. And thankfully the team did an amazing job, and really what they needed from me was kind of understand the project, understand what they were doing, and provide them that top cover, like help my directors, support my directors at the time to navigate that political landscape and essentially give the team a bit of a shove when they needed it to ensure that they passed beta. That team went on to launch that project, and I think they won awards, and it was actually lauded in the House of Lords, one of their biggest wins in the last decade, which is fantastic. So after that, I went on to a project called DDAT, which was essentially building the technical infrastructure. And at that point, I was then tapped up by the CEO of that consultancy, and he said, "We're going to go work in this new cool thing called blockchain." To which my response was probably along the lines of, "That sounds cool. What is it?" kind of thing. And it took me on a wild ride. I worked in two companies at the same time. One called Block Labs, another called Circular. And it was one of those sort of pivotal moments in your career where you're like, hey, I've grown a bit here. Like, I'm sitting at a table. Couldn't quote me on this, but we were in a WeWork in the West End of London, and we were all sort of talking about what we could do for these companies, like what was our skill set. And the CEO attacked me up and said I'll be the CEO. He brought his COO with him, so he'll be like, I'll be chief operations officer. There was a hedge fund guy who'd be like, hey, I'll do chief finance. There was another chap who was essentially cyber warfare hacker, like Thomas, who basically wrote.
Whoa! I want to rectify. I am not even close to guys like that. I don't have those kind of skills, Charlie.
But he basically wrote the rule book for GCHQ on cyber warfare, and he was like, I'll be the CTO. There's no argument there. And he got round the table, got round to me, and I was like, all right, I'll do the marketing, because everything else had been taken, and I was probably the only one who had an Instagram account. So it's funny that you talk about your career trajectory, you kind of fall into these things. From that came the collaboration with Liam. So after a while, I left those businesses to essentially start my own entrepreneurial journey. In doing that, Liam and I collaborated on an AI application, and from that, we've then got to aspects where we're essentially helping businesses build their own businesses using for marketing, operational efficiency, and strategic advisory. So it's never just a clean road, right?
No, it isn't, and I think that to that point, like sometimes when I hear you guys talking, I almost have imposter syndrome. I'm like, there's so much knowledge to get in the world, and there's so much knowledge I don't possess. And I see this every day when I'm outside my comfort zone. Tech, I would say tech, and being outside my comfort zone in tech is okay, but when I talk marketing, when I talk anything that is not tech, I'm always like, shit, there's so much to learn. And I hear you guys talk, making a career out of these things. You can't know everything, but it's always that imposter syndrome, because as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to know something of it at least, or at least enough of it.
I disagree with that. There's something that I based the first kind of, 10, 15 years of my career on the concept that if I didn't feel I was out of my depth, I knew that I wasn't moving forward. Like, whenever you feel comfortable, whenever you feel like I know how to do this, that's fine if that's where you want to be in your career. But that means you're not moving forward. Like, the times when you're moving forward in your career are when you feel like you're an imposter. That, for me, that is the definition of an entrepreneur, or the entrepreneurial spirit. Like, but the thing is, and this is why I wanted to bring this up. Like, so I loved Charlie's idea of bringing us three together to talk about this for a podcast, because his concept was, where do you start? And for me, I had exactly that problem in a lot of parts of my career in marketing, but especially one thing that really jumps to mind is in film. And what there was in the early 2000s is that, I've got it on one of these shelves behind me somewhere, a big green fat book called the Guerrilla Filmmaker's Handbook, right? And that was a book that everyone who got into filmmaking, basically, that is the reason why YouTube kind of almost exists in a way, because that was a tool that basically gave you all the hacks to get started in filming, but also gave you all the blurb, all the terminology. What's a best boy? What's a gaffer? The stuff that, like, you don't know where to start. Now we have AI that we can ask these questions. But like, the thing is, what you don't have, and I would say, so this is one of the things we're going to be doing, is I have actually been building a What the 3 GPT for listeners to be able to access and use, that will be being built into the show, which is a bit of a exclusive kind of behind the scenes idea of like what we're going to be releasing to subscribers. It's going to be completely free. The only thing we're going to, I say that, we're going to charge you your information, because that is what free really means. And the thing that I wanted to then come back to with that is that with that idea and having that place of, we want to be the Guerrilla Filmmaker's Handbook, but for emerging tech founders, is we're also just three guys that are doing it. And what we're going to be is no bullshit, no overhype. Because the thing is, if you haven't figured it out yet, 99% of influencers don't know what they're talking about either. And it's all bravado and front and image. And I'm going to show you this because it makes me look good. They don't show you the other stuff. We'll show you everything, warts and all. We're three guys that have had, I'd say, in terms of the global population, extremely successful careers. And I think there's a lot of people that, without sounding like an asshole, I think there's a lot of people that would be happy to have had similar careers to us. But we're not the 1% of, like, we're not the Gary V's. But I think that's kind of, for me, that resonates more because
I agree, but
only 1% can be.
I agree, and that's also, I think, what I mean by imposter syndrome. I don't like. There's this. You can look at it two ways, right? Like, I fully agree. I think the moment when I get imposter syndrome is when I talk to, I don't know, my lawyers about something, and I'm like, I am severely out of my depth. Okay, let's learn this, and this happens way more often than I want to admit. Also to myself, I'm like, shouldn't I know this kind of thing? But that's also the other side of it. It's like, oh, I don't know this. So, like, let's learn about this. And that's what I mean by imposter syndrome. And I think that a lot of tech people that start building a company or start their entrepreneurial journey have that thing. Because they're, like, most tech entrepreneurs I know, they're stellar, right? Like, they're, you ask them anything about their piece of technology, they will go on for days. And they will explain it to you in such detail. But then you ask them what the revenue structure is, and they'll look at you like, revenue structure? I have no idea what that means, right? And that imposter syndrome, I think it's a really good call to action. And that's always if you don't know, hire for it, right? Like, or learn or hire for it. And in this case, I generally hire for it because I just don't have the skills of a lawyer. But to that point, I think it's a really strong call to action on both sides. Hire or learn it. So, yeah. But depending on how you look at it, right?
I know. I agree. I mean, to take the concept forward, the biggest issue I've always had, and I consume a lot of content, is when you look at the episodic nature of a lot of these podcasts. It's very much like what's happening at the time and what's relevant to your situation, and it can be very, very specific. It can be sector specific. And you've got to try and strike this balance between filling the void and trying to be as specific as possible. And when I was sort of brainstorming, how does what three fill that void? Like, to Liam's point, when we're saying, right, we're going to go out, we're going to speak to all the experts. Our only real need for qualification in this is that we're qualified enough to ask the questions that matter. So one of the biggest pieces for us is okay, we've gone out and we've said, okay, we want to, first thing we want to do is add value, because if you don't add value in a podcast or any form of media, why should anyone bother spending their time watching your stuff? Number one. Number two is we obviously want to make sure that what we're talking about isn't bollocks, because we've got our faces on it. So that's quite a big deal.
That's fair.
And the third is how do we make this content as evergreen as possible, which is where the frameworky balance comes into play, where people are saying, okay, I'm just going to sort of give you the general pieces, because the general pieces give you the access to the thinking, that their thinking is something you can then go and research. So it gives you the white stripe around the football pitch that shows you, okay, you're playing in this field, and then you know where the goals are. So really the lack of comprehensive guides to this kind of stuff is where we think that this has got an edge, and where we're really looking on adding that value and taking it forward. And it's why I think people should follow and watch our stuff.
I think you raised some really great points there, Charlie, which I kind of missed really, which is we're also in this as well. We're on the journey with everyone that is watching, that we're basically saying, hey, we're going to go do it so you guys don't have to. And we've got the contacts. So we're going to bring the people in that know this stuff. And one of the things that I'm sure you'd always sort of agree with is kind of verifying your thesis. So we've got a thesis as to this is what the structure is for the emerging tech business, but we're going to verify that by speaking to the experts and verify. And they can someone might come on the show and go, "Hey, why are you doing this as number 3? This should be number 2. This should be number 10. Like, you've got this all wrong." And school us on some stuff, and that we'll be excited to be a part of that conversation if and when that happens. So yeah, I'm very much excited, and I think you're completely right in terms of having that playbook, and that again is something that I'm going to keep shilling what the 3GPT, because it's going to be my baby. We're going to be putting all of the information from each episode into this and training it on the data. So essentially, what you'll actually have is a generative AI tool that where Charlie says, "Oh, you've got the framework." Okay, well, imagine then from that podcast where someone's talking to you and giving you the framework, you can then actually have a one-to-one conversation with them, like the Q&A after a podcast that sometimes you might get. Well, you're going to have basically access to that through a GPT-4 powered AI tool that you'll be able to jump onto our website and access at any time and put in, like, if we've just gone through a legal section, you better go in there and ask it for like advice on, not legal advice that you'll be able to take action on, but I mean, get some ideas of who you should be talking to. Those things where the stuff where you don't know what you don't know. Well, if the expert knows it, this GPT tool will be able to help you. And once we get onto things like content and marketing, then it 100% is going to be able to help you figure out content plans and marketing and stuff. So yeah, basically, if you watch one of our episodes and you think, "Ooh, that was really great, the content that the guest spoke about was amazing," wait a few hours and jump on the GPT, and you can essentially talk to a virtual version of them. But it's also a version of every other guest as well, put into one mammoth, epic AI tool. Can you tell I'm a bit excited about it?
Chill.
Oh man, but I think that is when we talk about podcasts. Like, so Charlie, you're an addict when it comes to content in the best way possible, right? Like you're consuming, I think, 10 times, 20 times more content than I do. What I always found really hard with podcasts, and it's like, it's a lot of listening, and I like interactive podcast, I like interactive moments. Mm-hmm. And that's why this resonates very well with me, Liam, because when I hear something interesting, I don't want to go to Google, because I generally, when I have a podcast on, I'm doing something, right? What is nice with this GPT, and I assume it's available if I have GPT-4, I can, or I'm not sure how it will be available, but I assume it will be available that I can use on phone. I can just quickly talk to it, right? And I think that's super valuable, because very often when I listen to podcasts, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's really great." And then, I consume other pieces of data, and it goes kind of to the background, where this, now there's a follow-up, and there's something that I'm actually learning and I'm actually storing because I like it.
So what we're working on, and the final version may look slightly different, but hopefully what we're going to be having is on the back end of the website, there'll be a passwordless login into the subscriber part of the website. You'll jump in and you'll basically have the video on one side, the transcript of the podcast episode on the other side. It will go, as it's playing through the podcast, you'll be able to read along with the podcast. And then at any point that you want to basically talk to the podcast, you can pop open the 3GPT and ask it a question. And it will be as if you're asking us, essentially, and the guests and every other guest that's been on there, and all of our research that we've done, that we've trained and put into the RAG model, like as you're watching it live. Like, there is no more interactive way of having a podcast like this, and I'm super excited about it. It's something that we all came up with together in terms of like what would be the best value for the audience, and how can we utilize emerging tech in this tech podcast. And the even crazier thing is, it's not even that hard to build. Like, we'll give you that secret in terms of like, this is one of the secrets of like to build stuff with AI. Like, it's so modular. I say it's not that hard to build. I probably like 80% of the people in the world have no idea how to build it. But for me, like for the people listening, that's what I'm saying. It's not that hard to build. If you're a tech founder, an emerging tech founder, or the guy to hire or the girl to hire to do this stuff, it is very doable. It's not like you're going to need months to build this with a 30-person team. You better hire a dev to do it.
Fully agree.
Right. So I'm going to step in here away so we can yander away from the AI tool, which is going to be awesome.
No, all we talk about is GPT. What, the 3GPT? Sorry,
more shilling. Right. I want more shilling.
Right. So, right. Should we jump onto what the what the mission statement is essentially, because I prepared a little something, Charlie. If you want me to give it a go.
So it was mission, and then I was going to go through the episode structure so people know what they're getting.
You do that. You do the episode structure. I'm gonna say, in a world where technology evolves faster than we can keep up, and it's crucial for founders to stay ahead of the curve, whether it's the transformative potential of Web3, the omnipresence of artificial intelligence, or the intricacies of blockchain, we've got you covered. But What the Three is more than a podcast. It's a mission to empower you, the backbone and future of technology, with the knowledge and insights and wisdom from those who've navigated these waters before. From reputable startup leaders to seasoned professionals, we're bringing the experts to your ears. Our inaugural season is packed with everything you need to lay the foundation for your venture. We're talking venture capital insights, legal insights, go-to-market strategies, and so much more. Each episode is a piece of the puzzle, helping you to see the big picture of what it means to run an emerging tech business. But it's not just about the hard skills. It's about the mindset, the strategies, and the failures, and the victories. It's about understanding that the heart of technology, it's about people who make a difference. That's why we're here, to connect you with the stories and strategies and the people behind the tech. So, whether you're in the trenches of building your startup or you're dreaming of launching the next big thing, What the Three is your guide through the ever-changing landscape of emerging technology. So join us on the adventure as we explore the next stage of the internet, dive into the minds of startup founders, unravel the complexities of venture capital, and so much more. Together, we'll uncover the secrets to success in the tech ecosystem, one episode at a time. So buckle up and dive into the world of emerging tech with our very first episode, What is Web3, the next stage of the internet? It's time to explore the infrastructure and tools that will define the future of tech startups. I should have said that earlier.
Why do I feel that we need like the more you know kind of thing rolling in right now? Like you know that thing, right? It's like the more you know, and or Skeletor or Fallout.
Yeah. One man.
Yeah, exactly.
One opportunity.
This is the key. For me, this is the key that I would have put in, like, we're going to try and have some fun with it. It's going to be professional. It's going to be to the point. But everything we said I just said there, we're going to be delivering. And it's not going to be dry. What the Three After Dark is going to be very not dry. Like, we're going to have a lot of fun with that. But this is going to be very structured. And I think that's something that Charlie wants to talk to you next, that this isn't also just a sporadic, random kind of collection of thoughts. This is, what is it, like 6 to 9 months worth of work going into this project in terms of what we've prepped for it. So there's been a lot of thought, a lot of strategy, a lot of pivoting left and right around specific concepts till we've figured out what we're very sure is the perfect formula for, say, how we would want to ingest this content, because, say, we're you guys, we're the listeners in a lot of this, but also allowing for the guests to tell us that we're all wrong. That's all fine, because we're all learning together. So, Charlie, do you want to run us through the structure? I say this is a season. Has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. This isn't like each week's a different guest for a random reason, is it?
No. So, I mean, we went back and forth on this quite a bit, and the idea being that, so we're looking at a 12 to 14 episode run. Our goal was to give people the kind of starter pack of what you should be thinking about and what you should do when you're starting a emerging tech startup. The first episode is us. Welcome to the episode. The second is the mindset of a startup founder. Originally, it was going to be how do you run a startup business, but it just became painfully obvious that this was really all about mindset. So we've, again, an example of the pivot that we've had to make. Third, venture capital insights. So it's in essence, so why, like, so much of the burden of figuring stuff out is on the startup founder. We're literally just going to go to people who know the market inside and out and ask them, what is it you are looking to invest in, and how do you see that? Like, what is it you're looking for? Why do you look at that way? which in like my hope is that episode will be able to give you the insight to be able to look in the right place and then position yourself correctly to be able to say, okay, I've answered these questions that the people who give money to these businesses are looking for.
I think just to quickly jump in, I think what it also allows people to do, and this will be really fun, so have a think about this and bring a notepad or your laptop with you when you're watching the first episode, is almost the idea of build along as well.
Yep.
Like you could, if you don't have an idea but you want to be an emerging tech founder and you're not, listen to the first episode. As Charlie said, that will give you the ideas of what people are investing in. You can then go away, do some thinking, speak to what the 3GPT, and then come up with some ideas for a startup. And then the next week, it goes on. And do you want to explain how that process? Because it is like very much that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's literally step by step.
Yep.
So let's say you've got your mindset locked in, you've listened to us ramble and have a good time, and then you've spoken to VCs and got a general idea. Also, that access, right? So when could you get an hour-long meeting with a managing partner of a prolific VC in the Web3 space? Quite difficult, right? Episode 4 is then speaking to someone who has been on that journey and done it successfully time and time again, looking at the market landscape, which is the next thing you should do, and finding the opportunities. So when you're looking at the market, right, what are the VCs looking for? What should I be looking for? What are the patterns that I should be looking for? Why is this idea even remotely good? And how do you then quantify that? 5th episode, again, partner of a law firm, so it's legal insight. So is what I'm trying to do even legal? Was the 5th thing, or 4th originally, but 5th thing now, that we thought was probably a good question to ask up front. Moving on to go-to-market strategies. And this is one where I think it's just so fundamental in that people get wrong all the time. A lot of people I see, they go out, they have an idea, they ask their family, they think it's a good idea, and then they spend 6 months trying to build it. I've made that mistake too. The one thing to do is, and this is like, you either learn this lesson or you just get burnt by it over and over again. Figure out whether people want it first, whether there's an opportunity in the market, figure out whether the signals are good, figure out whether it's legal, and then try and pre-sell it, right? Go to market with the product already and see if anyone's willing to give you any money for it. Actual money. So that's go-to-market strategies is next. Validate your product, number 1. Devising an effective go-to-market strategy. So once you've validated it, how can I scale the way I validated it? Very simple. And then 7 is valuation.
I was going to say, quick answer there is go to Solana and do a pre-sell meme coin. Because that's all the rage at the moment. People just ape Solana at you. So there you go.
Problem solved.
Go on, Thomas.
No, I said problem solved.
Problem solved, yeah.
You don't need to listen to that episode if you're going to go into Solana and do a meme coin.
If your emerging tech is some sort of dog, Inu, cat, frog coin, then yeah, skip that one, pre-sell Solana, done the work for you.
Episode 7, moving on, is then valuation. So I've pre-sold it, got some traction, the market likes it, legals are there. What's this thing worth? Like, I think one of the things that people really have to ask themselves is this worth my time? Is this what I want to do? 8 is then looking at the finances. Like, how do I optimize my capital expenditure? Roughly how much do I give to what part of what function? 9 is potentially strategy and operations if we get the guest in. So, right, I've got my finance, I've got everything else lined up. What do I then do? What's the first thing I should be doing? What's the next thing I should be doing? How should I operationalize that? How should I run that? So it's not me jumping from task to task for 9 to 10 hours a day, struggling to keep the plate spinning. 10 is then, once you've got the start off, it's then what do you have to consider when you're running that business? Like, where are you looking for the edge in running that business? 11, tech building and innovation, like from a prolific builder. 12 is growth strategies. So once you've got this mechanism, you've built this engine, how do you put more gas in the tank. 13, sales conversations. So how are we selling this machine that we've built? And 14 is what you're building towards, brand. How do you essentially build that goodwill? So everyone can go to the Far East and buy some sneakers for 50 quid, 20 quid, 10 quid. Why are Nikes 150? Brand. Like, how are you going to start your brand? How are you building your brand? What is it about your brand that's important? 15, bumper episode, UI, UX. What is it as a base level design? And this is one of those questions that I've had 100 times, which is, what's the optimal outline for a landing page? How do I get people to convert? How do I get people to like sign up and, click on my link and talk to me? So that's the 12 to 14 with the bonus. If you make it all the way through, that will become released to you. But yeah, that's the structure of the episodes.
And then, so for each episode, we're going to be bringing on an expert in that vertical. And we've got a very specific structure for how the episode is ran. Do you want to run through that just very briefly, Thomas or Charlie, whoever feels more comfortable doing it?
We start with an introduction segment just to dig into who the guest really is, some anecdotes on what they've done in their generally long and fruitful career. And also, some stories around like fun stories, sad stories, scary stories, crazy stories, right? Like, we're emerging tech. Some have been in the .com bubble or even before that, and did tech before that. They're amazing stories just to listen to. But in each of these stories, there's also, I think, some lessons or some perspectives for new entrepreneurs or serial entrepreneurs. And then we make our way to the tips. Like, we always ask our guests, like, hey, what would you recommend to like first-time founders or serial entrepreneurs that are coming in the emerging tech space? What are the 10 most important things you will give to them? After that, we love to just have a brainstorm with like 2 or 3 segments, depending on the time that we have left. But there are always industry-specific and expert-specific brainstorms where what we found or what we will find is a lot of knowledge rolls out and a lot of perspectives roll out that we think otherwise won't roll out if it's just an interview, right? Because what we really want to do is having a conversation with our guests rather than just asking questions, getting answers, and move on.
And then just to jump in, that's one of the sections that hopefully going forward we'll be able to get audience and listener kind of more participation in, because what those brainstorms is basically, here's some scenarios, like, how do you deal with this, and actually like trying to find solutions. So rather than just like, what would you do in this scenario, and being very generic kind of question that have been asked a million times, like trying to play out some very specific things that we need their sort of expertise from. So that'll be where we'll be asking the community, like, if you've got any really specific kind of scaling problems or legal problems, like send us over the information, like get in touch, and maybe we can figure out and create a bit of a brainstorming session. We can basically try and like problem solve your problem with one of these experts for you.
Absolutely. And I think to that point, I mean, if there's a lot of comments and questions, like, I'm pretty sure that some of these guests would love to come onto the After Dark show. So we can have that discussion live if there are large questions. We have great guests that are really down to earth and love to talk. That's at least what we found. And then the last and final segment, which I always find really cool, and so far I had a lot of, is we call it Desert Island Essentials, right? So what are you taking to a desert island? Like what are your essentials? You go to a desert island or we get dropped onto it. And again, this really goes back to, okay, you have a 25 year career in product design, in UI, in legal. What are the 5 things you would take if you're 20 again, or you're starting a startup with nothing? What are the 5 essential things?
That's the thing. It's a very special desert island. It's a desert island that sends you back in time 30 years when you land to start again.
You've no bags, like no money. You've got no investor. So you've got no bags, no connections, no investor connections, nothing.
No phone. Although I believe that one of our guests said, I want to take a Kindle. So, we agreed on that one. So the beauty of it is that every time we ask these questions, there's new perspectives rolling out. Like I found, like, sometimes it's books, sometimes it's a mindset, sometimes it's a health advice. Be healthy. As an entrepreneur, like, you sometimes do these 60 or say 70 or crazy hours. Be healthy. Your body is able to deal with it a lot easier. There's a lot of different things rolling out, and we have like 12 to 14 episodes that comes out to 60 to 80 pieces of essential advices that we believe will add value to listeners and to the people that are actually building, right? And are first-time founders, but now for once actually centralized into, let's say, per episode 5 and then per season 60 essential advice and perspectives to take on your journey to be successful.
What the 3GPT will all have the information on.
I gotta admit, like, that we definitely too. Like,
this goddamn GPT.
I'm gonna need. I've got.
Where's the degenerate
I've got a
now?
Stream Deck. I've just realized I'm gonna have to set up my Stream Deck for a couple of little sound effects, and I'm gonna have to make a "What the 3GPT" sound effect that can be played every time it's mentioned.
Just like an NLP, like, plug. Just
Yes.
What
yes.
the 3?
what the three?
What the 3 GPT?
GPT.
Oh, could do. We have sound effects. Amazing. So that's the structure, and as I said, like, we've spent months going through this and finalizing and arguing backwards and forwards and debating and moving episodes around. Like, it's been a very much a labor of love, and we're really excited for people to now listen in, join us on this journey. We want to make it as collaborative as possible, because the emerging tech space is something that's really close to a lot of our hearts. And I think so going back to the title of this podcast, just like, what is Web3? The reason why I pitched that as the title was thinking about the concept of Web3. So, and I'd love to just get your guys' take on this as well before we finally wrap up, is when people say Web3, what they mean is it's the next version after Web 2. Well, Web 2 was interactive and social media websites. Web 1 was just the World Wide Web. Everything was pretty much static, apart from maybe some marquee text in HTML. It was all tables and frames. We then got dynamic and we got mobile with Web 2. Web 3 is the next evolution. And I think it was Gavin Wood that actually coined it as being for blockchain with Web3. And he took hold of it and said, okay, well, blockchain is now Web3. So Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, all of these things are Web3. I do not believe that Bitcoin is part of Web3. And we can talk about that in probably an After Dark episode. My view on the difference between Bitcoin, crypto, and Web3 is definitely something we can debate about. But Web3 was taken up by blockchain. But we're getting some adoption in blockchain online and logging in with wallets and stuff. But I would say we're getting less adoption than we are for AI. And AI is changing the way the internet moves very, very quickly. Whether you're thinking about it from the point of view of the contents of like trash heap to a degree. Like, I don't know if you've seen any of these posts on Reddit, but the amount of like now research papers that have just been written by GPT, like you just search for, as an AI in Google Scholar and it comes up with lists of stuff. You've got images, you go on YouTube Shorts now, half of them are just AI generated garbage. There's AI and then there's really bad generative AI. But all of these but regardless of whether you like it or not, AI has been integrated into every part of the internet. And I think there's actually a very good case to say that tokenization of the internet, which essentially is what blockchain and Web3 is kind of thought of now, would be more likely Web 4 and be something to be built on top of a new AI layer, and that Web3 should maybe actually be reserved for AI. Like, so these are but there's no right or wrong answer here. It's a kind of an open-ended question. I don't know. What do you think, Charlie?
Being involved from when I was involved in 2017, 2018, I think Web3 failed. And
I don't think it existed at that point. right? Like it was.
Well, it's when ICOs and things like that were coming out.
Yeah, was the Web3 term then already there? I think we were still like just in the blockchain industry. At least that's how I always perceived it as a builder. But
it evolved from there.
Yeah.
But okay,
Yeah.
let
So
me
Charlie's right.
reword
2014 is when Gavin Wood first used the term Web3, which is when he kind of popularized it.
Right.
So to rephrase then, when I was working in it and we were calling it Web3, which was 2017, 2018.
Yeah, you're right.
We were releasing ICOs. The whole concept, like the vision of the industry, was things were going to be decentralized identity, money. Like the whole point of it was that we were going to decentralize away control of the financial sector away from governments that didn't really care about us as individuals. We would regain gain agency over our funds and how we were going to make that work. I think the reason why I say I think Web3 failed is 70-something percentage, 73-ish% of blockchain projects are on Amazon hosting services. Not really
the front ends are.
Well,
there are nodes sometimes too.
If Amazon were to turn off, the decentralized dream would turn off with it, regardless of the percentage. And that is just fundamentally against what we were working on in 2017, 2018. I agree with your perception on AI. And I actually think AI is the more usable, more interesting. It's gathered more velocity, then I can make some money with crypto. In the circles I run in, it's more practical. There's still a lot of complexity around blockchain that a lot of people don't understand. I barely understand. That is a barrier to entry, whereas AI is kind of, I'm talking to the end user. They're just like, okay, I get what this does. I can conceptually understand it. And I guess that's my point of view. What about yours, Thomas?
So, sorry, Thomas, before you give your answer, I want to say that I think you make a really good point there, which kind of backs up my view of kind of AI is kind of blockchain needs to kind of leapfrog AI a little bit in terminology, but I don't know whether we can reclaim the vernacular now. But the reason why I say that is I've just done a Twitter space today with the guys from the Internet Computer, ICP. And you also look at what Arweave are doing now with their virtualization and stuff. I think that decentralized computing and decentralized cloud is really starting to find its feet, but it's now behind AI in that thing. So I think it does really so fit of tokenization of things kind of needs to be Web 4, but I think we kind of stuck with it now.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about tokenization, like I remember we already tokenized data back in the day when we worked at AWS, right? You needed to buy tokens to compute data. So there was some tokenization going on. That's always like, I don't know, an engineer told me that a while ago. I'm like, shit, man. That's
but it wasn't tokenized on a decentralized blockchain.
No, it wasn't. No, and so like I maybe I have a couple spicy takes on both AI and blockchain because like I'm long enough in the space probably to be a degen and I love it, but I'm also very skeptical, right? Like I said earlier, like how I look at blockchain. Do you really need a blockchain? 90% of the times we've asked that question to agencies to projects, they don't, right? Like they want it because it's cool, it's hip, but they don't really understand it. And then secondly, sometimes you need blockchain, but you don't need crypto. Hyperledger is a great, like, it's a great solution for a lot of issues, enterprise issues that I think solve a lot of good things. So for me, it's like, and then secondly, do you need decentralized blockchain? Like a lot of solutions, you need immutable, right? You need transparency. Do you need decentralized? I don't know. Like, does your average SaaS platform need decentralized data? Do they really want to give up that data? Because that's also I always love that discussion around like decentralized social media. And don't get me wrong here, I really love the perspective of Web3 and being decentralized, right? Like let's say decentralization of your data. practically, if you look at what a Facebook does or what an X does, what is their biggest stack? It's data, right? Like, everybody's like, yeah, but if we get big enough, then Facebook has no choice than to use decentralized data. It's like, I doubt it. Like, we're talking about 2 billion and some change users. Like, they're not gonna switch because you're talking about like your data. Nobody cares, and that's the problem of what we've seen in blockchain for a long time. We're focusing very heavily on technology, right? Everybody's always like, oh, I did this really cool thing and it's powered by blockchain. I always said, does my mom care? No. Does my dad care? No. Does my sister care, who's 10 years older than me?
Yeah,
no.
But when Facebook collapses, just like MySpace did, and you lose all of your data and access to everything, you'll be wishing you were using Lens.
I fully agree. But I'd argue that even if that breaks down and collapses, and I surely hope so, together with all the other big social media companies. On a longer
time frame, it will.
Oh no, it will. But it's like it's data.
Everything fails eventually.
People will keep like there needs to be a move, but I think the movement of decentralization takes a lot longer time than what people think. I feel, and I did some discussion like, oh no, it's like 5 to 10 years. I'm like, no, I think it's close to 20 to 40. Because it's a really long, like, you're talking about data. That's like oil. It's like, it's asking Saudi Arabia to say, oh yeah, we're switching to electric right now. Saudi Arabia will say, yeah, well, it's great, but we're still selling oil. We're not going to just throwing our oil away, right? Like, there's a lot of resistance from big companies, and there's a lot of lobby behind it. So I'm very curious where this leads us. And Liam, to your point, like, I also look at Bitcoin, and it's totally different discussion.
Well, I mean, the interesting point you raised was we're switching to electric. That means sod all. Where does the electricity come from?
Oh, look, hey, I fully agree. I had that discussion many times. Like,
fossil fuels.
Coal, mate. We take coal. Like, scroll oil. But what I will say is this regarding AI. Like, we've been doing data science and ETL pipelines for the last 10 years, right? Yeah. Like, we did AI before it was cool. And that's still the uncool side of AI, right? Like, Gen AI is the cool, shiny side, but that's what all AI has going for them. They have a front runner. They have Gen AI. How quick did OpenAI get there? Like, till 90 million? Was it 5 days or 6 days? Something like it was an insane amount of subscriptions or people signing up in like less than 5 days. What do we have in blockchain? We have an ETF, which, by the way, works really well, but it says something that our industry is more of an infrastructure, potentially heavy finance industry, where AI is more like it becomes more of a consumer product. And I think that
you say that, sorry, but BlackRock just announced the $100 million seed investment of a tokenized asset fund. So they're tokenizing assets on blockchain on Ethereum as of like 2 days ago. So It is also happening in the tokenization part.
It is, and I'm curious if that will actually accelerate things, right? Like, I really hope so, but throwing money at something or getting natural adoption like OpenAI did, which got a lot of money thrown at it, right? I mean, what was it? Like a astronomical amount of billions.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so it's I fully agree with like, but money doesn't solve everything. I have a great last thing I will say about this. I used to work for a project, a $1 billion unicorn project from a certain country that always throw money at the problem. It's kind of like that. Oh yeah, we're having one mother 9 months for a baby, right? No, we'll have nine mothers and it takes 1 month. Some things you can't accelerate with money, and it is really great that a BlackRock throws 100 mil at tokenization. I'm really bullish on that, but still, that doesn't. Like, the fact that an OpenAI gets like 90 million signups in less than 5 days or in 10 days, I don't remember the numbers, says something about the adoption that we don't have. Well, we're doing this for a very long time, right? Like, we've been pitching and pushing for mass adoption for such a long time. I actually saw that Starbucks NFT program die a couple days ago, which was, in my opinion, also a shitty program. But it says something about bad implementation, right? And we're really good in our industry to do bad implementation or to focus too much on technology. And that's something that makes me a bit sad, because there's a lot of good solutions out there, and I'm sure you've both seen them. And it's just a shame that they're not being shown for what they really are, and instead pitched as, oh, it's a great blockchain solution. Nobody cares, right? Sorry.
So, I think this is we're delving into what, and we're going to, I think, stop this at this point. Although I'm going to get the final say. This is essentially what the three after the dark, because like this is the stuff we're going to go into. We're going to push back on each other much more than this. The one thing I just wanted to leave it on was, you also just said that you were building an AI before it was cool. AI was being built and has been worked on for 20, 30 years. So you've got to remember that as well. Like, you think, oh, AI got adoption really quickly. Generative AI got adoption. I was using Da Vinci in like 2019 or whatever. Like, and there were other models before that. So it had its unicorn app moment. We need something similar in Web3. Yes, I would agree.
Yes. But
I think it's wrong to suggest that they're like parallels. Like OpenAI came out of nowhere with this AI thing. I mean,
okay. I fully agree. And again, this is an after dark discussion, 100%. But I will say that what is it? They do have a front runner, right? And
I'm sure I do. You folded your hand real quick there, Thomas. I'm not sure I do agree with you.
Well, I mean, like, no, I will.
AI is the consumer side.
No, but
and blockchain is like the infrastructure.
Okay, we're going full after dark now. We're going full after dark at this point now. No, of course, there's been AI versions of AI video editing, AI this. Yeah. Like, what it was actually way less penetration than blockchain's got. I actually say that blockchain and tokenization has got massive amount of penetration over its time. Look, like Coinbase becomes, every top of the bull market, Coinbase becomes the number one finance app on downloads. Yes. The only AI app that before ChatGPT was maybe a number one was probably some sort of face fixing app for Instagram photos. So no, I call bullshit.
Well, I mean, okay. So like, I'm not sure if we're comparing like the whole AI industry or Gen AI with blockchain, right? Because I think
have to compare the whole AI industry. You can't say, oh, Gen AI is a new thing now. Oh, okay. I'm not saying that. Market fit in blockchain, I'll say this is not blockchain anymore. This is Gen blockchain, and we've just got adoption in the first week, and it's the best. Right? I'm sorry. We're going to carry this conversation on from here in the very first What the Three After Dark, which will be what is Web3, and the three of us are going to duke it out as to what is. So you've got a little bit of taster of what's going on, and the fact that I've stopped, I feel like I'm going to get like hit on two sides. Because I've only got my kind of final view on it. But ultimately, what we really need you to do is, if you've enjoyed any of this episode, if you're watching on X, if you're on one of the social media platforms, like, subscribe, whatever you're able to do in terms of interacting with this content right now, that means you'll see it again. If you're on X or whatever, and there's a way to kind of click a bell button to get notified, make sure you do that so you see the next episode coming up. And leave comments, ask us, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. Like, we've got thick skin here, so if you think all of this is a pile of shit, tell us and we'll fight you. No, we won't. But we'll engage with it because we're all learning together, and we're looking forward to the very first episode where we actually start bringing our guests in, and you get to like hear from people that really know what they're talking about. And that's what we've been trying to do, is bring people to you that will add value. We want to build a community here. We know that's not going to be easy. We're willing to put in the effort, and we know it's going to be difficult. There's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of choice. Charlie's concept here was to build something that is cornerstone content that can live forever. I'm going to put it on the blockchain. I'm going to put it forever on the blockchain. I'm going to post all the episodes to Lens. I've just decided, and people can find it whenever. So, Thomas, Charlie, do you want to sign us off with anything else? I think I've said all I need to say now.
Well, I think this all shows that, like, we all have different takes on this, and I think that's also the value of when we talk to our guests and when we go through this whole season. We all look different at different topics, and I think that's the value, because we all come from different angles. And hopefully that value will roll out to the rest of our listeners and viewers.
For sure.
Yep. And I sign off. Thank you for being here. You've got to this part of the video.
You see spicy takes.
Yeah.
Some spicy takes. Yeah. So everyone, we have been What the Three, and we will see you on our very first. This is like our session 0. Any of you D&D players out there trying to kind of get the lay of the land? We'll see you in the official episode 1, where we are talking with. Who are we talking with, Charlie?
Tim O'Brien on mindset, and that guy's lived a life. He lived a life and a half. We've had a few careers. This guy's tripled that.
For sure. Well, we will see you on Mindset. Goodbye.
See you.